Sundays have always been sacred to me. It gives me a chance to spend time with my family, with my friends, to focus on my faith. And honestly, We Rest on Sundays is a platform that I've created to help you navigate the complexities of the world. I want to spend time having open, honest dialogue with mentors, friends and family, and individuals that I truly believe are exceptional. We're going to focus on love, career, marriage, parenting, and everything in between. And the primary goal here is for us to become the better versions of ourselves every single day. I want to thank you for tuning in. I'll see you on Sunday.
Tony, what's up, man? How are you?
Good, man. Good. It's a pleasure to be here.
Man, I appreciate you more than you know. I'm super excited for this chat that we had, man.
Yeah.
And really just grateful for your time, bro. You got a lot of moving pieces, father, husband, career oriented.
Yeah.
Going after, you know what I'm saying, APS opportunity as well. So I know that like your time is precious, but super excited to just spend time, man. You're a man of a plethora of different accolades, uberly educated, including going to law school, spending time in DC on the Hill, and you know you've had a healthy career. So I do want to have a chance to dabble and jump into more of like your why, your background, your purpose, etc. But in your own words, who is Tony Mitchell?
Man, I would say first, I think the first thing I gotta say is I'm a husband. You know what I mean? I'm a husband. I love my family. So husband to my wife, Brittany Mitchell, my boys. I'm a father. It's probably my favorite job in the world. You know, in a day where, you know, we have so many responsibilities as men, I really do love being a father. But I'm a hard worker. I'm a guy who born from a family. Mom and dad were high school sweethearts. They've been together since the 10th grade. So I carry that strength of family with me. But I'm someone who wants to be a change maker, honestly. You know, I want to be a person who makes a difference. You know, I think about my life through this lens of impact. You know, I think you spend so long trying to find yourself career-wise and personal-wise. And, you know, where I've ended today is like, I want to be someone who helps other people, you know, so all of those things, I carry those things on my shoulders, but I want to be someone that my parents are proud of and ultimately my family is proud of. So yeah, that's a bit of me.
Yeah, man, it's good, man. It's really good. And I know that, you know, your parents have been together literally for decades.
It's a long time, man. It's kind of weird.
Bruh.
It's weird, yeah.
They've been knowing each other for a lifetime.
It's crazy. Yeah, I've seen their prom pictures together.
Wow.
Like junior and senior prom. And they got married when they were 19. You know, they high school sweethearts. You kind of don't hear those stories anymore. They're in their mid 60s now. But yeah, they truly do love each other, and they've given me such an amazing example on what love should look like, and certainly have given me a foundation of like what marriage should look like on my end. It's been really good to see them grow together. You know, as the oldest kid, you know, you kind of see your parents in different phases. So it's been really, really nice for me to pull those phases into my own life now. You know, now that I got kids myself. So yeah, they have literally been through the fire together. You know what I mean? Career-wise, as my dad is transitioning to being a pastor, retirement, all those things. My mom has held him down and he holds her down. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, man. Beautiful is literally like the word that I think of when I think of how long your parents have been together and really the foundation that they've been able to curate and present to you and your siblings. But can you share more? Because you know, I know the intimate part of the story of like, you know, two primary words I feel like you've shared with me is like, hey, I really think my upbringing was rooted in faith and structure, right? So like, can you share more of that and maybe the role that your father served in your life and how he led you, and then how does that really translate to you being a father today?
Yeah, man. You know, my father is he's a military man.
Yeah.
He's in the Army for 20 plus years. So I caught him in his drill sergeant day. You know, that's when he was tough. You know, but he's also a man of faith. You know, as long as I've known my dad, he's been a person who's preached the word of God. So me and my siblings were always raised in a church. You know, we were always always at Sunday school. You know what I mean? Like we didn't have options. We were always at Bible study. And that just kind of gave us a grounding of like who we are as people, you know. I think both of my parents are servants, you know, and it takes a while for you as a kid to kind of get used to what that means, honestly, because you feel like it takes away from your relationship with them at some point. But as I've grown older, it's been something that I find very refreshing, you know, because I don't see a lot of leaders who are willing to give to others, you know, and I think that's important. You know, my mom would give the shirt off her back, you know, for another woman in the church. You know, she handles a women's ministry. She does things with tutoring and mentorship. And my father, you know, he's been a person who he loves to tinker with cars. And I got a lot of memories of him giving cars away, fixing cars, giving them away, making sure that someone had a ride, picking people up for church. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like the things that, you know, you look back on and you're just like, wow, like, why did you do that when people didn't do anything for you? Those are the things they did. And it truly became a part of my DNA, you know, as I grew older, man. So, you know, my dad gave us that structure. You know, he told us that, you know, when you do for other people. And that's something that me and my brother certainly kind of like took with us. You know, he's a hard working man, you know, he wasn't, my mom and dad, they didn't get an opportunity to go to college. And that, you know, that kind of stemmed from, you know, my grandfather being sick and my dad feeling like he had to go to work immediately. And him and my mom, they went to Germany, they moved around the world, they did their thing. But he always made sure that we understood that, like, hey, you know, provide for your family, look out for other people, be kind. Those are the things that he kind of instilled in us, man. So as annoying as it was as a kid to just feel that weight and that pressure, you know, he was a man, like homework, you know, like A's, B's, like no C's. Like I remember my dad yanking me off sports teams in the middle of seasons in high school just because his standard was what it was, you know, and I love that quote, the standard is the standard. I feel like my dad created that before any football coach did, because he really made sure that we understood that, like, hey, if this is the standard in this house, anything outside of that is a choice. And if you make that choice, you have to deal with those consequences. And, you know, it's something I kind of, you know, live by today. It's like, hey, when you have a standard for yourself, anything outside of that standard is a choice. But if you have a goal, make sure you stick to that standard, man. So it's been really good to have a father who is willing to pour into me. You know, I say that my father was probably one of the best providers I've ever seen. You know what I mean? He's a great example of what that looks like. A man in the military who, you know, my mom, by the time I was in the 5th grade, she was a stay-at-home mom, and you know, she looked out for the family, and my dad provided. He made sure we all had what we needed. You know, even when he retired and things were, you know, different and difficult from being in the military and having that covering of housing and all those other things, he was like, hey, look, man, like, I got a family, and I'm gonna take care of y'all. I'm gonna pour into y'all. I'm gonna give you guys whatever I need to give you guys to be successful and strong men who can give to other people and be model citizens, man. So I love it.
Yeah, man, it's good, man, and really powerful. And, you know, like, can you just share more on, I think I'm captivated because, one, you know, you did college, you went on to law school, and from what I remember of your story and what you just shared a little bit of as well, like, neither one of your parents went to college, right? So, like, how did you find your way, and how did you really, you know, like, going to law school is no easy fate, right? Like, it takes a lot. So how do you feel like you really, like, found education and, like, took it seriously and pursued it and were able to go on to advanced degrees, et cetera?
You know, my dad he's a disciplinarian, man. So, you know, early on, we just knew what his standard was. And it was so kind of ingrained in me and my siblings that, for the most part, it was just like we knew what we had to do. It wasn't really an option for us. It was just like we knew what his standard was. So I took that to college. You know, I remember my dad dropping me off my freshman year, and he told me, he's like, I've taught you pretty much everything I can teach you. He said, you know, I've taught you how to be a good person. I've taught you how to be a person of moral character. He said, a lot of the rest of this you got to figure out on your own. So, you know, I appreciate that. You know, it's something that has taken me every step of the way. You know, my dad used to have these, like, little sayings that he used to, like, you know, run into the ground with me and my brother. And one of them, he's like, whenever you have a situation, he said, you ask yourself 3 questions. He's like, would God be proud? would I be proud, and would your family be proud? And it's just like, dude, first of all, that's heavy. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
as you're in the fourth grade, you was like, dude, I'm just trying to go down the street. But like, those are things that I think about now. You know, it's just like, okay, like, hey, you know, is this something that I would be proud of? Is this something that my father would be proud of? Is it something God would be proud of? And I try to live through that lens. You know what I mean? Like, I think everyone makes mistakes and has flaws, but you got to have some sort of guiding post. And I realized that as a person who couldn't give me just like, you know, the collegiate education in those conversations is that, he said, I can teach you how to be someone who has a guiding post.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important. I think a lot of people lack it these days. So I try to be a person who has just a level of just like moral vision, you know, and, you know, we find our way, but it's something that he gave to me. So when I got to law school, you know, it was just like hard work, you know, that he told me, like, well, you work hard. That's one thing he made sure we did.
Yeah.
Is have morals, work hard, outwork people, never let someone outwork you. That's just kind of his mantra, you know. So I got there, and, you know, throughout different phases in life, I would just like, I'm always be a dog. I'm always be a person who's going to work hard, man. So it's carried me a long way, man. It's part of who I am, you know. And as a father now, it's something that like I want my kids to understand. It's like, hey, don't be afraid of the work. You know what I mean? Like, so many people shy away from work. So many people shy away from things that are hard. But it's just like, you lean into that, you know, and it takes a while to get comfortable with it. But now, you know, after repetition, man, it's just something that I feel good about. I like challenge, you know, something I look forward to. I like solving those things, because people who solve challenges change the world. So.
Love it, man. Yeah, I can only agree with you 100%, man. And like systems processes. So it's really good, man. So it's very clear that, you know, majority of really like your journey has been rooted in education. So can you share a little bit more about like why are you so fascinated by improving the educational system as well?
Yeah, sure, man. You know, a lot of that comes from just like personal experience. You know, I think I was the oldest, so I got, you know, the best and worst of my parents at the outset, and my parents really pushed me to go, you know, try, do those things. And you realize, I didn't realize that as a kid, but like every kid is different. You know, I got 3 other siblings who were all very different from each other. So some of that is grounded in just kind of seeing my siblings' education experience. You know, my brother, he was just like, some things came natural to him, but like, just, you know, sometimes he was like, I don't really want to do this. Like, he did what he wanted to do. So that level of discipline wasn't there for him in some other spaces. You know, my younger sibling caught a very different version of my parents. We're 10 years apart, me and my youngest brother. So just that push for him was not the same push that I had. So it's just like, okay, man, like, you know, just that level of like, hey, man, I want to be the person who's in first. I want to be the person who makes it. Hey, I want to be the person who raised my hand. That wasn't him. He was just like, hey, like, I feel confident in who I am, and I don't have to do those things. So like, his path was very different. You know, he's definitely one of those Gen Z kids who are just like, you know, I want to do what I want to do, you know, and I don't want societal pressure or parent pressure to like push me into spaces. Like, I want to do what makes me feel comfortable. So, you know, as I saw them kind of, you know, their educational experiences unravel and unfold, it kind of shaped my own perspective. I'm like, hey, like, what's missing? Where are the gaps? You know, I was also like a military kid, man. And I always say that as you move around, man, I hated it. We moved around every 3 years. You know, I went to K through 2nd in Columbus, Georgia. We moved to Hawaii right afterwards. We did 2nd through 5th grade in Hawaii, moved to Cocoa Beach, Florida right after, did 5th grade to half of 7th grade in Cocoa Beach, moved to Virginia in the 7th grade to the middle of my 9th grade year in Virginia. And then my dad finally retired and I lived in Columbus. And I hated that because I never had a chance to grasp onto like a friend group. It's just like, man, like you find something, you got to move. But as I got older, I realized that like I was someone who had a lot of different perspectives that I carried with me. I had a lot of different friends. You know, one of my best friends in the 5th grade was this kid named Philip Lee. He's an Asian kid. You know, like we grew up loving Kobe together. You know what I mean? Like, I was in Hawaii. I didn't go to a school where there was a lot of black kids there, but I developed a relationship with him and just culturally understood like who he was. You know, so as I got older, I realized that that was a superpower. It's like I realized that I understood people. I understood how to be empathetic, how to look beyond myself and really kind of look at challenges through other people's lenses, man. So, for me, it was, growing in that space helped guide me. It helped make me who I am, man. So a lot of those experiences I hold on to tightly. It's helped me get through law school. It's given me the perspective to, when I graduated, go into the working world, to be a leader and be empathetic to other thoughts, to really kind of like use diverse perspectives to solve problems. I think that, I always say perception is reality, you know what I mean? And I think that if you can understand other people's perceptions and it becomes a reality. So it's definitely something that has made me unique in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, man, it's good, bro. And thank you for sharing that. Can you share, well, like, was there a moment in either your early education or college or law school where you felt like the system wasn't working for you and or your peers?
Sure, yeah. My first real vivid moment in education was my first grade teacher. I always tell people, everyone has one teacher that you just like grab onto, and her name was Mrs. Law. She was strict. Literally to this day, like, I write in cursive, and I don't do a lot of writing in print because we had in first grade penmanship, and I went to a Christian school then, and she was just like really drilling us on like them loops, man. So, but she was someone who, like, in the middle of her discipline and like letting us know like what her expectation was, she showed us so much love. She made me hungry to learn. She really kind of, created like this young monster of like, man, I want to read books because the world opens up to you. And she really made us feel like that. So that's kind of my first experience on like how great education can feel, and wanting to learn. We had a program called Book It that I always like talk to people about. We had these little buttons, you put them on your shirt, and every book you read, you got a star on the button. And when you got 5 stars, we got a pizza. And I was like, man, Miss Law was like, hey man, you better get your pizza this week. And I was running through books, you know what I mean? As much as I could in first grade. So I took that hunger with me in a lot of ways. So I was very appreciative of like having those arms wrapped around me in education early on. Now, as I moved around in a bunch of different places, I saw a lot of different things. And when my dad retired, I went to a high school in Columbus, Kendrick High School, and it was a different high school than what I was used to, and I remember being in the 10th grade, and I think I forgot something at home. My dad came to the school, and it was a rowdy high school, you know what I mean? And I remember there being a situation where one of the teachers there and a student, they were going back and forth. And I was just like, I had never seen a kid cursing at a teacher, let alone a teacher going toe to toe with a kid. And I was just like, wow, like, it was a lack of understanding of what the kid was going through, and just like a lack of empathy for like what the kid's situation was, and just like a lack of structure in general in there. So like it really made me understand like, oh, if things can go real left without structure, without people who are willing to like give of themselves to students and kids, and that made me want to just kind of invest in that space. It's like, hey man, every kid deserves someone who's going to champion them. And when kids don't have that, man, that's where things go left. It's like having this thought that kids don't want to learn. I don't think it's true. Like, I think most kids want to learn. I think they get to a point where they feel like learning doesn't work for them, and I think a lot of that is based on the environment that they're in, or whoever's teaching them, or just some of those other societal factors. But I think that as teachers, I think that there's a really pivotal role in like, how do we mold kids? Like, you got to think about how long a kid is at school. You sleep 8 hours a day, you play another 8 hours a day, you at school the other 8 hours during the school year. So the role of a teacher or an administrator or someone who's there to guide a kid is important. So seeing someone not take that role seriously, seeing teachers who were just like, I'm here to, collect a check, man, it's like disheartening, especially when you've seen what the other side of that looks like. So now as an adult now, I got my own kids, it's just like, I want to see I want my kid to have Miss Law, every time. And I realize that they're not going to have them every time. So I think that it makes me want a school system that is willing to like pour into them. And I realize that like, hey man, I'm blessed, you're blessed, and I think that there's a lot of kids who don't have the opportunities that we will have. So we need a school system, teachers, we need all those, pieces of the puzzle that can push them and lift them up. That can supplement what's not happening on the home. I think that's important.
Yeah, man. I couldn't agree with you anymore, and I appreciate you really sharing that journey because
Yeah.
I will remember this moment until I die.
Yeah.
Really, two teachers. One, my kindergarten teacher, she was phenomenal,
Yeah.
and my story almost directly correlates to what you just shared. And then two, my high school guidance counselor was actually the same guidance counselor that both of my older sisters had. Her name was Miss Gabrielson, and she was nothing short of exceptional.
Yeah.
And she met, I feel like she met every student where they were, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
like
amazing.
I didn't know anything about HBCUs.
Right,
You know,
right,
I was
right,
in
right.
Wauwatosa, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But she knew about HBCUs.
Yeah.
And this is a white woman, middle-aged white woman, and she just was very passionate about the job, very
Right.
passionate about the youth,
Yeah.
very passionate about like kids' futures and careers. And she
Wanted to
just
see kids grow.
that's it, man.
Yeah.
And so I've been a direct, impact of having that love, that
Sure.
care, that support from the educational system. I was in public school, and so it can be done. Like I've seen it be done. I've experienced it on my end. So it's a really good story, man. And I have a lot of synergies connected to what you just shared, man. So thank you.
Of course. Yeah, I think sometimes just like it splits a couple different ways, man. Like I think as parents, you always want what's best for your kid. Like that's a lens that all parents are gonna take into a school system. I think schools aren't successful when parents don't think about other kids.
Yeah.
Your kid isn't the only kid there, and I think it takes a lot to get to that point, because you just want your kid to succeed. Like, it's a lot of pressure in schools these days. Parents are, you've seen the cheating scandals, all these other things that are kind of going on in the world just for the kids to succeed, So it's just like the focus has always been like, what do I do for my kid? What are my kids' issues? How do I get my kids' grades better? But the reality of it is, man, it's like it's 20 other kids in that classroom. It's just like
At least.
right, at least. And when those kids are behind, it stops your kid from being able to grow at the level that they should be growing at. So you got to be considerate of that. You know what I mean? Like if you have a kid, just because your kid can go in the classroom with a teacher who has a nonchalant attitude and excel because you have structure at home, doesn't mean that other kids can. So it's just like you got to push. If you see something, say something. So I believe that, I want the same for other kids in my community that I want for my kids. I want all to succeed. You know what I mean? Like you look at just like the state of schools now, and I think that it comes from a lack of empathetic, just understanding of like what kids deserve because we are so focused on ourselves. And I hate that, man. I really do. Because I think that we can really, it's that saying that like a rising tide lifts all boats, and I believe that that's what the education system is truly about, especially a public school education. So.
Man, you hit it on the head there. And this is like me being super vulnerable and like honest.
Yeah.
The top thing that I feel like I probably wrestle with right now is, and this is, give me grace to everybody that tunes in on this as well, because I don't want this to come off as me being unaware or misinformed or offensive. But currently where we live, and where we live in Atlanta, I feel like we aren't zoned to the best school for what I desire. My wife and I desire our daughter to currently experience. And we're very faith oriented as well. So we knew that we wanted to start with that foundational piece as well.
Yeah.
But again, going back to where I struggle is like the point that you just shared was, it's not just your kid. This is a community. This is 20 kids, 100 kids, whatever it may be in the class or the cohort. But it's very easy for us right now to get siloed and say, I don't have time to solve those problems over there.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm just going to pay this money and she's going to be in private school for these foundational years.
Most definitely.
And I have said to myself, it's just the foundational years, foundational years, and like it's a bit of an excuse. They are.
They are. I mean, like you see the data, you know what I mean? Like when kids test, by the time a kid's in the third grade where they test, you see data that shows and tracks where certain kids' trajectories go, and I think that there's always exceptions to those rules, but you got a lot of data. So that's a very fair assessment.
Yeah.
I think while I think especially in the areas that we live in, I'm in the West Side, I've told parents that your kid can't catch poverty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like
Yeah.
me, I go home, like my boys require me every night to read 2 books a night. They're like, Daddy, I get in the room in the rocking chair, like 2 books. I want that one. I want that one. I'm like, all right, dudes. Like, am I gonna say no? I'm not gonna read you a book. It's like, no, I'm gonna pour into my kids.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of kids don't have that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just like, what do we do for those other kids? You know, like if a parent doesn't have the resources to help that kid, like what is my role and responsibility? I think that's what leadership is. It's like, how do we invest in something that's better? You know what I mean? Like that's gonna make my kid better. I want my kid to live in a flourishing neighborhood where the education system is great. Now it's a lot of work that's involved in that, you know, especially in those pivotal years. K through 3rd grade, man, like that's where the rubber hits the road, you know? So it's fair, man. But I think that there, regardless of where you send your kid, regardless of if you send your kid to a private school, there's always work that you can do at your local school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the piece that a lot of people don't, you know, that they let go over their heads. It's like, regardless of what I want for my kid, there's a social responsibility for me to make sure other kids are there. Whether that's like coming in and reading a book a couple times a month to a group of kids, whether that's like them seeing Ben like a person who has succeeded in life, you know what I mean, through circumstances and all those things that can be an example. You know, we mentor kids through the Emerging 100, and I joke with them all the time. I say, hey man, you might not be the next LeBron James, but you could very well be the next me.
Yeah.
And I say that jokingly with them just to get them to understand, man, like success is a sliding scale, man. You know what I mean? Like, dude, if you 5'2", you're not gonna be LeBron. You know what I mean? But like, man, if you pour yourself into those books, the world opens up to you, man. And I think sometimes kids just don't have that example of what can I be? Who do I see? Who's willing to invest in me? Who's willing to be like, man, you know what? I'm gonna take you to a Hawks game because you've never been to a Hawks game. You know what I mean? Like we work with these kids at Best Academy, you know, through the Emerging 100 and 100 Black Men. And we took a group of kids to Delta and they did a behind the scenes tour of Delta. Dude, like 80% of the kids had never been to the airport. They're from Atlanta.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's like exposure. Like those are things that you can do to move the needle. Expose kids. You know what I mean? Like your fraternity brothers, hey man, like we just gonna bring y'all in. We want to show y'all what life outside of this looks like. I think that's important, man. So I really feel firm about, regardless of where you send your kid, man, there's a responsibility that we need as a community to move kids forward. And I think that responsibility was probably felt a whole lot more in our parents' day because the community was cohesive. You know what I mean? Churches were the backbone of a lot of communities. It was like, hey man, everybody's gonna be back there. My dad used to do it at our church. He's like, if you come to Bible study, bring your homework.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And right now it's just like, everybody's doing their own thing. You know what I mean? Communities aren't as tight-knit as they were. And I think that like, it's our jobs, it's our responsibilities of people who have seen that spectrum of things happen to pour back, man. It's important.
Yeah, man, you hit it on the head there. And it's a healthy challenge for me. Like I mentor all the time and I'm spending time all the time. But like, if I'm being very, very honest and I dig deep, the kids that I'm spending time with and that I'm mentoring, they have a Ben in their life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or they've had a Ben in their life. Or I'm their second, third, fourth mentor in their early and young careers, right? And like, they just want to get to the next level. And it's like, that's great. But like, the biggest opportunities are in my community in Southwest Atlanta are the foundational years in elementary and early education, right? Like, I think it could be helpful, and I've done it before, but I need to tap back in, and I want to challenge my frat brothers and other men and peers that are, you know, healthy, you know, role model figures, really to just plug back in, because I think that's an easy, quick win. Even it's as simple as going to go read a book or two, you know,
man,
like,
that's it. That's
it. So they can see the example and see what's possible. But, so thank you for that, man.
Of course.
But what is your mission, man, and your aspirations for pursuing APS specifically?
Yeah, man. I've just seen a lot of challenges, man. Like some things I think are just like no-brainers. You know, you hear the data around just like the literacy scores for kids in APS. It's like 33% of kids can read. It's like 33% of kids can read. You know, like that just seems unfathomable in like this day and age, you know? But then you have other stats that talk about like how high the graduation rate is, you know? And then, you know, I think Atlanta is one of those cities that is increasingly becoming a city of have and have nots, you know, and it's something that has to be addressed. You know, if you look at different zip codes, you know, kids have better access to housing, better access to food, better access to workforce and job opportunities. And if you just go down 5 miles, that flips. You know what I mean? Like I've seen data that shows just like, you know, how long a person lives can be dropped by as many as 12 years in a 15-minute drive. You know, so for me, like I believe in equity. You know, I believe in seeing kids succeed, especially like our kids. Like when you got a school district that is heavily African American and you see this data and it's just like, we don't care. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think we've gotten to a point where we've started to politicize failure. And it's just like, what are we doing here? You know, and I'm kind of to the point now, just I feel like there's a bit of like that grumpy old man creeping up in me. You know, it's just like, man, I never thought it would be me.
Yeah.
You know, this kid was riding his bike in my grass. Hey man, don't be riding my grass. You know, it's that level of like, hey man, like I gotta do something about this.
Yep.
You know, like I feel strongly about it because I got 2 sons and I want them to live in a world where they can succeed and where their friends can succeed. So I want to bring a level of parity across the board. You know, I want to see education access be broadened. You know, I think we talk about literacy as if it is like the core of the problem. And I think, you know, in an equation of 2 + 2 is 4, literacy is the 4. So what is a 2 + 2? You know what I mean? Like kids are living in poverty. Kids don't have food. During COVID, there were kids that were coming to school just to eat a meal.
Yep.
And it's just like, okay, like we act like that is how we want kids to grow up. Like that is normal. You know, if we act like parents are choosing to be like, oh no, you got to eat at school. That's not the reality.
Yep.
You know, so it's like, as a school board, what do we do to supplement those issues? I think it's important. Kids spend so much time in school. Billions of dollars of budget are within the school board's budget. And it's crazy to say, like, APS School Board has one of the biggest budgets in the state. So it's like, where do the dollars go? When we talk about literacy issues, like how do we invest in earlier literacy? How do we create programs that are universal pre-K, you know, to where our kids can be touched earlier, you know, our kids can be exposed to, you know, be socialized and understand phonics and those things a lot earlier. Can we start at 3? What do we give a single mom at 3 who has a kid who doesn't have books? You know what I mean? Like my sister-in-law, she lives in North Carolina. She's one of those people who pours into her daughter and now her little boy. And she told us, I didn't even know about it. Like Dolly Parton has a book program. Well, they'll mail a book to you every month. You know what I mean? For free.
You taught me something new.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like there are resources out there, but we got to help people see that. You know what I mean? Like, and we can't turn a shoulder to them because their lens is our lens. You know, it's like you working 3 jobs and then you come, man, I'm telling my kids get home from school and I work 1 job and I'm just like, dude, everybody relax, sit down. You know what I mean? Like, you feel that tension. So imagine someone who's doing it by themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have so much respect for single mothers and the work that they do just to try to keep things going. So if we realize that that's the situation our grandma is trying to help raise a kid, like how do we create a system to where those kids have an opportunity for success?
Yeah.
It's important. How do we create a system to where our young boys in middle school earlier are saying like, I never thought about an apprenticeship program. I never thought about how much money an electrician or a plumber or any of those people make because they make good money.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But if you let them get too far in the spectrum and you let them be in a neighborhood where those things are happening, left, right is happening, the friend down the street is like, hey man, let me introduce you to this.
Yep.
We lose our boys, man. So, you know, I think kids in some parts of the city in Atlanta are proud to be products of their environment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, of course this is my environment. I'm a proud product. 100% literacy rates. We're doing well over here. But for our kids, that's not the truth. So how do we make our kids proud of being a product of their environment? Atlanta's growing fast, man. So like the resources that are there for them already, they should have access to that. They should have people who want to champion them succeeding.
Yeah.
Just like we champion the other kids succeeding.
Yeah, it's good, man. So how, right?
Yeah.
How do you plan to close some of those gaps?
Sure. Yeah, I think you need earlier interventions. I think that's one of the big ones. So again, I go back to early, how do you get kids earlier access to phonics? How do you get kids earlier exposure to those things? You know, again, universal pre-K is a big one. You know, I think by the time if we expect our kids who are coming from underserved populations and underserved homes to be ready when they get to kindergarten, just like that, we're being misguided. So it's just like, we got to start earlier. You know, I think you need more. Atlanta is one of those cities that we look at as a resource hub. We talk about it as an economic driver of the South. Yet we have no pipeline for our kids to move into it from a workforce perspective. You know what I mean? Like, how do we create those programs earlier where our kids are like exposed to workforce, exposed to jobs, exposed to opportunities? Exposure is so much, you know what I mean? And I think you have to have a lens as a board where you look at the whole child. I think that's important. We can't just be like, we want you to be able to read and know how to do math. The mental health crisis is real.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, how do we help kids work through problems? How do we help kids solve problems? How do we help kids learn how to ask for help? How do we help kids, you know, come to us with the things that are like heavy, man? You know, I was mentoring a kid, you know, and he told me, he was like, hey man, like he was down. I was like, he's normally a kid who has some good energy. And I was like, dude, what's up? What's wrong? You know what I mean? He was, like, dude, come here, we got to talk. And he was like, man, my house got shot up this morning. I had to take both of my siblings to school and I came in late and everybody fussing at me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's a reality, man. You know what I mean? And it's just like, we can't act like kids are choosing this space. We can't act like parents are choosing this space. So we got to give them resources. Like, what resources do parents need? There's so many communities within Atlanta who feel like they're voiceless. Like, and that's why I would say within the school board space, there's a difference between school board issues and community issues. We got to be able to solve for both. Teacher salaries got to be where they need to be, most definitely. That keeps teachers in the classroom, that keeps them motivated, that helps them feel like they can, you know, be good stewards, you know what I mean, to our kids' education. But like, we also got to address these other issues, like kids hungry. You know what I mean? Like, we got, Atlanta has over 70 schools within APS. More than 40 of those schools are under enrolled. You know what I mean? Like, how do we bring community into the school? If a school has 65% capacity, what community organization can we bring in to help with before, after school programs? How do we create a group of dads who are like, you know what, we're gonna go read to the kids every week. I was you know, able to be a part of this group called Library Dads. I had never seen anything like it.
I just interviewed Kari.
Really? Man, it's a cool thing, man. And like, I took Bryson with me, not kind of knowing what to expect. And, you know, I walk into this library and there's 60 dads in there.
Yep.
And I'm just like, this is interesting. And it's a bunch of kids and they go through like, hey, we're gonna let the kids play first, get it out. You know what I mean? They sat everybody down, all the kids sat down, the dads sit around in a circle. They had like a library dad creed. And I was like, man, this is for real. You know what I mean? And after the creed, they sat down there, they read a book. They had a projector screen. They read a book about financial literacy. And I'm just like, it's a bunch of 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds in here. And it's the ABCs of financial literacy. And I'm just like, that is how we pour into our kids. You know what I mean? Like, when they left there, they were like, everybody go get your kid, you read a book in the library to them. That's how you impact literacy. So you got to have programs that make kids hungry to learn. You know what I mean? I love the Book It example because I think we have so many community resources in the city where it's like, how do we bridge community resources? How do we bridge a Slim and Huskies now? You know what I mean? Like, they in Atlanta to be a part of the education system. How do we bridge the restaurants, the Flying Biscuit, or whoever it is to be a part of these kids' lives? You know what I mean? I think that's the incentive. You have to make parents feel like, what is the incentive for me? In a world where I'm busy, I got jobs, I got this going on. Like, how do I tie education to a familial need? You know what I mean? I think that's important. We got to find better ways to do that bridge.
Yeah, man, that's great. And super shout out to Library Dads and
Most
Kari and his
definitely.
team, man.
Yeah, they're cool.
They are exceptional.
Most definitely.
And
Most definitely. Shout out to the Library Dads.
yeah, man.
for
Like
real.
they are just they're putting in the work and they are serving the community and they are giving these experiences for fathers and their kids
Sure.
to get more and more comfortable with literacy. For
Most
people like you and I, it's easy to read books to our kids because we understand the impacts of how important it is. But it's also like that's not for every dad.
Right.
Some dads may have been that underserved or underrepresented kid
Correct.
growing up, and they're still not overly confident when it
Right.
comes to reading. But like that program and having community and
Exactly.
bringing kids together helps build confidence for the kids and for the fathers as well.
Definitely.
So
Yeah, and if you're a dad that like that's not your space, come be part of the community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's people that will read to your kid. You know, it's a feeling of like let's drop the shame. You know what I mean? Like as black men, I think we carry so much of that, just kind of like that tension at
Yep.
times. It's like how do we drop that and move our kids forward? You know, how do we have library dads be a part of everyday school?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how do we bring them into a school once a week to like, hey, we're gonna read a book once a week, whether it's 3 or 4 days, we can rotate rooms, we're gonna read books.
yeah.
It shows kids the importance of a father's presence or a male's presence in their lives, but also it's helping them inch along. You know what I mean? Like make it fun. You know, you got kids, you got to make stuff fun for
Yeah.
them, you know?
Yep.
And I think sometimes school can be so rigid because I've been working all day. You know what I mean? Like a teacher just like, why I got to deal with these kids. And it's like, man, it's a blessing to be able to launch. My dad says all the time, it's a blessing to launch arrows out into the world. And I think that's what kids are. They're arrows, man. I think kids can be, especially our kids in Atlanta, can be ambassadors of the city. But we got to give them the tools to do that. So,
Yeah, that's good, man. How do you ensure that the underserved and the underrepresented kids' voices are heard and that they are seen?
yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, I was talking to my father-in-law about this, and I think it is really hard for individuals to be able to sustain the energy to move kids forward. You know what I mean? Like you got every individual has so many things going on, but I truly think it takes a community. I think you have to build a community that has a vision, a collective vision, and understand that like, hey, we have to do this. This is our job. You know what I mean? So it's like the same thing that I talk about with churches. Like, how do we bridge churches into being part of like after school programs? Like, how do we get them to feel the investment for the community of what it means to have kids who are in school? You know what I mean? I looked at some data the other night that was like at some of the high schools, 50+% of the kids are missing 10 days. And it's just like, how? I didn't even think that was an option. Like I missed 3 days of school and I was like, man, I'm in trouble. You know, you didn't even want to be sick back when we was kids.
Yep.
But like kids now don't have that same lens of like what an education can do for them. But that's because things change. So it's like, how do we make the education system work for where they want to go? Now you got to have structure. But like, hey, like I did a great program at Washington High School. They do have a studio. You know what I mean? It's like, how do we create this space to where like, if this is the space you want to go to, this is Atlanta, man. Like we are hip hop. We are music in some ways. So like, how do we get people to invest in that? Like, how do we bring a lot of these community partners, these big organizations to say like, hey, if we want this city to get better, if we want crime to go down, if we want all these other things to be impacted, it starts with education. You have to see, I think sometimes we're a microwave generation. We want to do things, and when it doesn't work, we just like, oh, we good. You know what I mean? Like if it don't heat up as fast as we want to, we go buy some fast food. But it's like change takes time. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why I say on the school board level, man, I want to do the work. I like the work. My dad has prepared me for this moment. I didn't know he did, but he's prepared me to be someone who's like, hey, like, how do we look at how do we move this forward through the work? How do we step outside of ourselves and want to do for others? How do we, like, regardless of what I can do for my kid, worry about the other kid? Those are the things that are important, man. So I think once we begin to, and it takes time, you know what I mean? Like we can't expect kids' scores to go from 30% to 50% tomorrow. But you chip away at it. You know what I mean? Like you show them that we are invested in you. You got 12 years of school. We're going to see you through.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's important that we take that time. You know what I mean? As a community though, and show them that we're invested into their success.
Yeah, it's good, man. Really, really good. Just a few more questions for you.
Of course. Yeah. I could do this all night.
Yeah, same. But we would be remiss, and she would probably kill you. But can you share more about your wife Brittany's role, just like in your journey, your family, and also just like in the role of like helping to support you go after this, Atlanta Public School Board?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So Brittany's a speech pathologist, and she's a damn good one. I love. During COVID, I had like the pleasure of like hearing her work, and I'm just like, man, like you are actually really, really good at this. And I realized how good she is because we got two boys who talk too much. You know what I mean? Like it's different when you can teach a kid, speech and then send them on their way. It's different when they're in your home. So like I always talk a lot. So I've heard the challenges of kids who have special needs. It's given me a lot of perspective on like the gaps that are in the education system. And she's someone I can lean on. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy that I joke about my parents, but me and Brittany have known each other since high school. We've known each other since the 11th grade. And some of those stories come full circle. But it's cool to have someone who has seen a lot of the things that you've seen. You know what I mean? She's seen me in high school. She's experienced high school. She's experienced just like the gamut of like Columbus, you know what I mean? Seeing the educational system in different ways. So that's informed our perspective. You know what I mean? She's worked and done speech work in DC and in Atlanta and in other places. So just like I've moved around, she has a very different lens of like, okay, like what success looks like in different areas. So just that, having that in proximity to me is like, I'm getting it. You know what I mean? Like I feel good getting that energy from him, or like, let me run this by you. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's good to have someone who has that servant's heart as well. She definitely puts a wind in my sail in the space where, I want to drive policy change. You know what I mean? But it's important as you look to move policy through the lens and politics or whatever it is, that you're grounded in like what is actually happening. And to have that kind of resource in my house is invaluable. You know what I mean? Like it helps me, it grounds me daily. It makes me realize that like my perspective isn't the only perspective, because I'm just like, well, I don't get why this is happening. She's like, have you thought about this? And I'm like, no, because I'm not a teacher. I'm not an educator. I have never worked in a school. Now, what I do know how to do is move policy. I do know how to like build community. I do know how to be innovative. I know how to be a thought leader in these spaces. But I think she is my right-hand person when it comes to just like what the broader vision could be, and what the investment should look like.
Yeah, man, it's great, man. It's really, really great. And it's powerful to have one, that experience, but also that partner that really is there to partner with you.
Most definitely.
Really push like the agenda that y'all are, trying to like be when it comes to being change makers in this city.
Yeah.
So share with me, why are you the best person for this job?
Yeah, man. One, I believe that leadership has to be empathetic. I think that is, we've gotten off of that path, and, I don't know where. I think this political environment has created people who are selfish and partisan and don't look at just the needs of other people. My lens is, my parents didn't go to college, and as much as I've, been able to learn and grow and risen in this space of going to law school and having a good job and all these other things, I'm grounded in the experiences of my family. You know what I mean? And I realize that there's a lot of kids who just like need a champion, so being able to drive policy for our kids in the midst of like all this madness that's happening on the federal level and on the state level is important. We need people who are willing to build community and bridge community, but also listen to them. And I think that we've forgotten how to listen. Everybody wants to go. Everybody has their own thought of like what it is. It's like, hey man, like my thought isn't gonna solve the world's problems. Our thoughts can. And I think you gotta be willing to say like, I don't know everything, man. I'm not shy about that. Like I feel crazy when I'm the person in the room who knows the most. You know what I mean? Like I want people to be like, have you thought about this? Like let me tell you about like my life experience, because those experiences are what helps us get to good policy. So having that policy lens is necessary though. I think my work and my job has prepared me for that, to like, how do I drive? One of the reasons love the work that I do as a lobbyist is because with the stroke of a pen, you can change the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. And I think that's the same thing that you can do on a school board level by having good policy in place. If you want to see kids move forward, you got to think about like what moves them forward. We can't just be there shouting at the school board podium saying like, this is what we need to do and handing out awards. Like, it's hard work, and I'm committed to that hard work. And I'm investing in it because I got my own too. You know what I mean? Like, I want a world where their friends are able to thrive just like I see them thriving. You know what I mean? Like, I want them to look back and say like, hey man, my dad did work for others. I think that's important. But on the school board level, I'm at a place where I just want to see better for the city. Like, if I'm going to be a person who paying taxes in the city of Atlanta and half of those tax dollars going towards the education system, you want to see some progress there. So, I'm serious about that, man. My dad really poured into me and my siblings just like how important it was. And for me to have parents who didn't go to college, for me to have siblings who did not graduate college, and for me to be in this space to where I've been able to do those things, it's important for me to tell that story of like, hey man, like, you can do this. You know what I mean? Like, I am no different from you at all. Literally, I'm not. And I want to normalize that. I think sometimes we live in this space where people want to live on this pedestal. We want to be better than people. We want to be exclusive. And, that's cool when you're in the club and you want to pop a bottle or something like that. But like, when it comes to education, there has to be a level playing field. Like, our kids deserve so much more than that. The inequities that exist in this day and age in education are sickening. You know what I mean? Like, the level of poverty that kids are facing is sickening. And I think we have to like call that out. Like, we can't dance around and be like, oh yeah, we're doing better with literacy. We're trying to get like, no man, like, this is sick stuff, man. And if we don't invest in our community in the space where kids are becoming less and less literate and policies are getting tricky on the federal level, we see what's happening in the presidential space right now and all these things that are going on left and right. You know what I mean? There's so many partisan issues. Our kids are not going to be able to understand the things that are being put right in front of them. So I want kids that are able to be impactful citizens. I want to launch these kids into the world to be ambassadors of the city. I think that's important, like I said. So I think I'm the best person because I have the whole spectrum of tools. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I have a Swiss Army knife of tools in my tool belt that make me the person who can drive change. And I think right now we need leaders who are willing to be innovators and thinkers, who understand policy, who understand community, who understand how to be empathetic to get our kids to where they need to be.
Man, listen, you hit that out of the park, bro.
I hope so.
And like, listen, anything I can do to serve and support you, bro, like, please know that I am fully in. You have my vote without a doubt. And, others, I think that we need more people, more leaders like you to step in and to be willing to do the heavy lifting and like the hard work because one, to your point, you do have that full spectrum.
Yeah.
And having that full spectrum is invaluable because you can empathize, you can understand, your parents not finishing school. You can understand the other parents that didn't go to school, that didn't go to a graduate school and all these other things that may not have those accolades. You can relate to them because you know what that may have felt like, know? And I think it's just, it's time, man. We need to see change. And to your point, like, these kids, man, in Atlanta deserve it.
Right. Like,
they really deserve it. And they deserve these opportunities. They deserve chances to stop being water boys and like get back to the school. And, like, there are opportunities within our educational system, so I couldn't be any more proud to be your friend, man, your brother.
That, man.
And I really just appreciate your time, man. And I appreciate how you're showing up in this leadership role.
Man, it's a labor of love, as they say. You know what I mean? Like, I've gotten to a place where career-wise, I was always just like pushing. And, I've been reading this book called Moral Ambition, and it kind of talks about how many bright minds are, in the world that are working at, I think we need people at consulting firms. I worked at one point, but like, how many smart people we have doing things that aren't moving the needle. You know what I mean? Like, they put money in the bank, corporations get richer, they make you, you can live a lifestyle. But I think that we have so many, just in our circles, in your circles, in like the circles that are going to be watching this, people who are thinkers, who are bright minds, that if they really put time and effort into some of the problems that are core to this city, man, we can really solve so much. And I think sometimes it just takes you getting to a point where you can get outside of yourself. And it takes a while, man. It's like, I'm not acting like that is easy. Like, oh man, like, I'm gonna put down this job to go do this. Like, no, that's not easy. It's an amount of privilege that one has to be able to kind of navigate in that space. But I think when you get there, you owe it to a lot of people, not yourself. Mm-hmm. You owe it to a lot of people to push. You know what I mean? Like, you are a leader in so many ways. You're a husband, you're a father, you do great work. We gotta push. You know what I mean? So it's just like, we gotta break out of this comfort zone if we want to see changes for our people, man. You know what I mean? Like, I think that is the basis of so many movements that have happened in this city. And I think now we're at an inflection point where we're at another one. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I want people to be energized about that. Like, leadership doesn't have to be stale. You know what I mean? Like, it can be cool. You know what I mean? We can make it cool, but we can make it impactful at the same time. And I think that's important. Like, let's change the landscape. Let's change what that looks like for kids, for parents, for the community. So.
Yeah, man. Listen, Tony, thank you, bro.
Of course, thank you.
We're going to continue to talk about this, man. And yeah, how can people find you, and then how can people support?
Most definitely, man. So you can find me, mitchellforatlanta.com. That's our website. We have the website up. We got our Instagram, Mitch for Atlanta, on Instagram. Of course, like if you reach out to me, I'll send you to Act Blue. We always need donations coming in. We're running a campaign. One of my favorite mentors always says, like, it takes coal to run a train, but it takes gold to run a campaign. And it sounds crazy, but I'm like, man,
it's true.
It's true. It's true. So, as we look to change the landscape, like, you need those resources. I think that's important, man. So, Instagram, find me on Instagram, go to the website, donate, please. I really appreciate it. And then they can just hit up you, man. Shoot them my info, man. I'm a person, I'm a man of the people now. So yeah. I always have been. So I want people I want to talk to people. You know what I mean? Like, find me, Tony L. Mitchell Jr., you know what I mean? LinkedIn, find me wherever, man. I want to talk. I want to build community. I think it's important.
Man, keep going, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man.
Yes, sir.